Hi, I'm Laura Williams with the Institute for Community and Adolescent Resilience, Icarus, and Wise Action Consulting. I'm pleased to return to be here with you again, this time in session 2 in our series for Muncie Steering Committee members for the initiative Web of Support Everybody Succeeds. In this series, we'll talk about a skill of learning in action using a tool called adaptive action. So what is adaptive action? Why do we think it can be an especially useful tool in times of complex change like we're facing? And when might you use or practice it? Adaptive action is actually a cycle. It's a series of questions that are pretty simple, asking what kinds of questions, followed by so what kinds of questions, which are kind of meaning-making questions, followed by kind of action questions, now what? They can be used at any level or scale. It can cover multiple time horizons, something that could happen within seconds in the course of how you want to think about this session in the course of a meeting, but it can also bridge several months. In our planning series, it could include a couple of years. It could be a series that you apply to the next decade. It's making conscious and mindful something we actually often do a lot. And of course, this is where experience comes from. But in complex situations, we'll talk about in a moment, this can be very useful to make explicit. And it gives options for action. So let's break it down. You pick a question that fits. A what type of question? I'll give you several. What is the current situation? Is a great what question. An alternative might be, what am I observing? Might be, what does my gut say? What surprises me? What does the research say? What am I wondering about? Those are all what kinds of questions. I'll follow that with a question that flows from it. So if I asked what the conditions were in what, my so what question might be, so what are the effects of those conditions? Other so what questions could be, what are the tensions? What is important? What options do we have? So what could success look like now? So what? Those are all so what kinds of questions, and there's an infinite number of them. Then you move to now what, and you pick a question that flows next. So we might say, if those are the conditions we're observing in what, and so what are the effects of those conditions, we might say, now what will we do? Or what should we do? What can we do? You could say, what will we measure or communicate about those conditions? You could say, now, what should we share and with whom? Or what will we look for? Now, what's one thing we can do to move forward? Or it can be as simple as saying, hey, it occurs to me, I've got a new question from my so what. So what is my next question? And take that into another round. Those are all now what kinds of questions. So adaptive action is actually this series, this cycle of asking what kinds of questions, followed by so what questions, followed by now what questions, action steps. Just in review, these are some of the examples we gave of what, so what, and now what. Here's an example. We got Navi, who we affectionately call Navi Dog, just after Christmas. We got Navi from a shelter and adopted him, and it turns out that he has heartworm. Well, while Derek and I have talked about getting a dog for over a decade, this opportunity presented itself pretty quickly, and so we took it. So as I started to notice some of Navi's symptoms, lots of very thirsty, having to go to the bathroom all the time, very hungry, I wondered how much of that, my what question is, what are the symptoms I'm observing? So my so what was, so what of that might be attributable to his heartworm treatment and the medication of prednisone? So what does the internet say? So what does the vet say, right? And now what could I do to alleviate those symptoms? Now I could have stopped with, so what are those symptoms attributable to prednisone? And then my now what could have been, so now what can I do to research more of that? Who could I talk to? And then just keep doing the cycle. Now, some of this seems pretty simplistic. And in fact, I'm sure many of you who have parented, been pet owners, you do this pretty intuitively. It's often how we solve problems. The good news is you can use the same technique, the same series by making it explicit and handle things that can feel pretty intractable, particularly in collaborations. But for now, we'll just talk about practicing that and making it explicit. Another use is navigating conflict. So I've often done that, pairing it with the standing with an open mind techniques we talked about in session 1. I notice when I get defensive and I start to reflect on why, and then I go through an adaptive action cycle of what triggered me or what did I get defensive about. So, what could that mean for blocking what's moving ahead? Or do I need to attend to my feelings in a different way? Is the situation a good one for me? And now, what do I need to do? You'll get practice with that in your workbook if you want it. It can also be a tool to help a group adapt amidst rapid change by making the steps pretty explicit and giving us a chance to talk one another. I even use it to organize agendas. And interestingly enough, I sometimes work backwards. Conversations with Derek and I about our business or what we find challenging, he'll throw out an idea sometimes about what he thinks should happen next. I may be confused about what that idea signifies. I might disagree with it. And sometimes I'll simply say, how did you get to that now? What? Can you tell me what your question you're trying to answer with that action? Those are examples of ways you can use the action cycle. Why this tool? We think it prevents analysis paralysis. It favors actions, large or small. It can help you and others see your threads of thinking, which can facilitate learning. It's a great tool when you're anchoring, right? Because you don't presume certain solutions. You inquire about them. And it can help us adapt in times of complex change, where there are many causes, but maybe no one single cause. There may be many descriptions of a problem, but no one definitive one. There may be many stakeholders or implications for issues. So we aim by pulling threads through the cycle of what, so what, now what, we aim for fit and wise action. So when might you use or practice it? Well, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. We'd like you to pick a moment or an issue that feels a bit stuck. You can work through the worksheets in your workbook and diagram out an adaptive action cycle. You can pick something as simple or challenging as you want. And you might even try combining it with tool 1, as I gave in the example. In summary, adaptive action can help you see more options, get unstuck, and kind of figure out what fits in a given situation rather than thinking there's only one right answer. You do it already, and with intention and practice, it can become more second nature. We think it's useful in any context of complexity. Committee work can be complex. Anchoring definitely other people's webs of support can be complex. Certainly lifelong partnering, all of those can be complex situations with no one single point of view or answer. And we think adaptive action can help you facilitate wise action in those situations. For more information, feel free to reach out to me at either of my email addresses. If you want to know more about the steering committee work or inquire about the next steps, contact Kyra, please. And I just want to give thanks to Human Systems Dynamics Institute for the adaptive action information that we've adapted for use and sharing with you today. Look forward to seeing you in session 3. Thank you.